I never thought my marriage would end this way. I never imagined that the woman I loved, the mother of my children, would turn our life into some twisted game. But I heard it. I overheard her say it. This is not cheating, it's just a game. I will prove that I can cheat and not get caught. Today my ex was right under my husband's nose while he was sleeping upstairs. We do this every day. My heart stopped. I was in the kitchen, sipping on a glass of water, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, when I caught the sound of her voice drifting from the living room. It was late, past midnight, and I had woken up to get a drink. The house was quiet, except for Claire's voice, low, confident, and laced with amusement. I stood frozen, gripping the glass so tightly I thought it might shatter in my hands. My wife was on the phone, completely unaware I was listening. A game? A game? Was my life some kind of twisted joke to her? Was our marriage, our home, our family, just a playground for her sick little experiment? I felt the air get thick, my breathing slow, as every piece of my life cracked apart. I wanted to believe I had misheard, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But the certainty in her voice left no room for doubt. She was cheating. And worse, she was enjoying it. She wasn't crying in regret, wasn't burdened with guilt. No, she was laughing, boasting, as if this was nothing more than a challenge to prove her own cunning. I swallowed, forcing down the bile that burned my throat. My hands clenched into fists, my pulse hammering in my ears. I had to be smart about this. Storming into the living room and confronting her would accomplish nothing. She'd lie, twist the story, make me look like the paranoid husband. No. If she wanted a game, I would give her one. But I would be the one setting the rules now. Sleep was out of the question. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening as Claire eventually came upstairs, her footsteps light, as if she had no care in the world. She slid under the covers beside me, her breathing slow, steady, completely at peace. I wanted to turn to her, to ask her straight to her face what kind of woman treats her husband like a fool. But I didn't. I stayed still, my mind racing through every possibility. How long had this been going on? Who was her ex? How could she do this right under my nose? One thing was clear, I couldn't let her know I was onto her. In the morning, I played my part. I kissed her on the cheek as I always did, told her I'd be home late, and watched as she smiled at me like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had changed. As soon as I left the house, I got to work. I stopped by an electronics store and picked up a small hidden camera. It wasn't much, just a basic motion-activated device, but it would do the job. When I got home that evening, I told Claire I was exhausted and went to bed early. She didn't argue. Of course, she didn't, she thought I was a clueless fool. But I didn't sleep. Once the house was quiet, I set up the camera in the living room, positioned perfectly to capture whatever happened while I slept upstairs. Then, I took things a step further. I carried our flat-screen TV outside, just onto the patio, where I could set up a live stream. It was a risky move, but I needed the truth out in the open. Claire wanted to prove she could cheat and not get caught. Let's see how well she plays when the whole neighborhood is watching. I left everything ready, my stomach tight with nerves, and crawled back into bed, waiting for the next move in her little game. I didn't have to wait long. Morning came, but I barely felt it. My body was stiff from lying awake all night, my mind running over every possibility of what I might see on that footage. I wanted to check it right away, but I forced myself to play it cool. If I suddenly changed my routine, Claire would notice. So I got up, stretched, and went about my morning like any other day. I kissed her on the forehead, inhaling the scent of the woman I had once thought was my everything, and pretended I wasn't dying inside. She smiled up at me. That same damn smile. The one I used to love. The one I now knew was a mask. I might be home late, she said casually, sipping her coffee. A big project at work. Lies. I forced a chuckle. No problem. I've got some things to take care of too. She nodded, completely unaware that her perfect little game was about to collapse around her. The second I was out the door, I raced to my car and pulled up the footage on my phone. The camera was linked to an app, and as soon as I hit play, my stomach twisted. Claire had wasted no time. Not even 15 minutes after I had gone upstairs the night before, she had let him in. My pulse pounded in my ears as I watched the video. There, on my couch, the couch where we had cuddled, where we had watched movies, where we had built a life together, she straddled him, laughing, running her hands through his hair. Comfortable. Familiar. Like they had done this 100 times before. And then it hit me. I knew this man. I knew him. My stomach churned as I recognized the face I had seen so many times at barbecues, at dinner parties, at our wedding. Her ex. Jason. My breathing grew ragged, my grip tightening around the phone as I watched them kiss, as I saw her whisper something in his ear that made him grin. He had been right under my nose this whole time. The worst part. She wasn't just sleeping with him. She was in love with him. I could see it in the way she looked at him, the same way she used to look at me. I nearly smashed my phone against the dashboard, but I stopped myself. No. I couldn't lose control. Not yet. I had been played, humiliated in my own home. And now? Now it was my turn. That night, I set the final pieces of my trap. I tested the live stream. The TV was positioned perfectly outside, angled so that anyone passing by the house would have a full view. I checked the sound, adjusted the brightness, and made sure the camera was exactly where it needed to be. If Claire wanted to be the star of this sick little game, I would make sure she had an audience. Then, I went upstairs, pretending to sleep, waiting for the show to begin. And sure enough, it did. I could hear her footsteps downstairs, the sound of the front door opening, a whispered giggle. My heart pounded as I imagined what was happening in my living room at that very moment. I clenched my fists, picturing them tangled together, laughing at my stupidity, at the man who trusted too much. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked downstairs. The night was clear, the sky full of stars. And the second I threw open the door, I made sure the entire world could see exactly who Claire really was. I swung the door open with force, the hinges groaning in protest. The cool night air rushed inside, but the real storm was the one brewing within me. Claire's laugh died instantly. Jason's head snapped toward me, his eyes widening in panic. For a split second, no one moved. No one breathed. And then, the scream started. Claire scrambled off Jason, grabbing at the throw blanket from the couch like it could somehow shield her from the truth already laid bare. What are you doing?" she stammered, her face ghostly pale. Jason, half naked, tried to grab his shirt, but his eyes flickered to something behind me, outside. That's when he saw it. The TV. The live stream. The moment realization hit, his face drained of color. Claire followed his gaze, and when she saw the screen, her entire body froze. There they were. Broadcasted to the entire neighborhood. I had set up the TV in the perfect spot. Anyone walking by, any neighbor peeking through their window, anyone driving down the street. They could all see it. See her. See him. See what they had done. The way Claire had thrown herself into Jason's arms, the way she had whispered in his ear, the way she had laughed like this was the best joke in the world. And now. Now the joke was on them. I crossed my arms, watching as Claire gasped for air, her chest rising and falling in pure panic. "You," she started, her voice shaking. "You, this isn't. This isn't what, Claire." I cut in. "What it looks like." She shut her mouth, her lip trembling. She knew there was no way out of this. Jason's jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists like he was gearing up for a fight. "You had no right to do this," he spat. "No right. No right?" I repeated, stepping closer. "You're screwing my wife in my house, on my couch, while I sleep upstairs, and I have no right?" Jason said nothing. Coward. Claire tried a different tactic. Her eyes softened, filling with fake regret. "Listen, baby, I don't." The word shot out like a bullet, sharp and final. She flinched, swallowing hard. I shook my head, exhaling slowly. "Tell me something, Claire," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Was it fun? Playing this little game?" Her face twisted in confusion. What?" I took a step forward, staring her down. "The game, Claire," I said. "The one where you cheat right under my nose and laugh about it on the phone with your little boyfriend here." Her breath caught. I saw the exact moment she realized. I knew. I knew everything. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth. "You heard me," she whispered. I did. I nodded. And I made sure everyone else did too. I gestured to the TV outside. The proof. The humiliation. Jason suddenly lunged forward, as if he could somehow stop what was already in motion. "Turn it off," he roared. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Instead, I smiled. "You can turn it off yourself," I said, stepping aside. "But good luck stopping the internet." Jason froze. Claire gasped. "That's right. It wasn't just playing in the yard. It was online. A live stream." By now, hundreds, maybe thousands of people had already seen it. Claire's hands clutched at her hair, her breathing ragged. "Oh my God," she whimpered. "Oh my God, oh my God." Jason turned to me, his face red with fury. "You ruined her life," he spat. "You ruined mine too." I chuckled, shaking my head. "No, Jason. You did that all by yourself." Claire burst into tears. Big, gasping, ugly sobs. But I felt nothing. Nothing at all. Because the woman I loved was already gone. I turned on my heel, heading for the door. I had seen enough. Let them drown in their own shame. I was done. I walked out the front door and into the cool night air, leaving them behind in the wreckage they created. Claire's sobs rang out from the house, panicked, breathless, desperate. Jason cursed under his breath, pacing like a trapped animal. But none of it mattered anymore. I had nothing left to say. Outside, the night was eerily quiet, but the damage was already done. My neighbors had seen the stream. My phone was already vibrating in my pocket, texts pouring in from friends, family, and even coworkers. Some messages were sympathetic. Some were pure shock. And a few just said, "I always had a feeling." That last one hit differently. Because suddenly, I wondered. Was I the only one who didn't see it? Was I really that blind? I shoved my phone back into my pocket and kept walking. Claire was screaming now. "Please, baby, just come back inside." Baby. The word made my skin crawl. How dare she? I turned slowly, staring at her from the bottom of the porch steps. She stood there barefoot, wrapped in nothing but a blanket, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Jason stood behind her, now fully dressed, his face locked in a deep scowl. What a joke. I looked at her for a long moment. Then, I laughed. Her lips quivered. "Why are you laughing?" I just shook my head. "Because, Claire, you were so confident. So sure you'd never get caught." She swallowed hard. I didn't let her finish. You sat in this house, in our home, plotting and laughing like I was a fool. She wiped at her tears, her hands shaking. It wasn't a game. I snapped. She flinched. She knew. I heard every word, I said, my voice lower now. I heard you say that this wasn't cheating. That you could prove it. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I took a step forward, tilting my head. Well, Claire. I said, mocking her own words. Did you win? The way her face crumbled in that moment. I won't lie. It was satisfying. Jason finally spoke up. Man, you made your point, he muttered. Enough of this. Just turn off the damn stream, and let's figure this out like adults. I looked at him and grinned. Like adults? He crossed his arms. Yeah. I took another step closer. And then I punched him. Square in the jaw. Claire screamed as Jason stumbled back, clutching his face. That's for screwing my wife in my house. He lunged at me, but I was faster. I stepped back, shaking out my fist. Go ahead, I taunted. Try something. Please. Give me one more excuse to beat the hell out of you. Jason's nostrils flared, his hands curling into fists, but he didn't move. Because he knew. He knew he deserved worse. Claire shoved herself between us, her hands outstretched, like she was still trying to control the situation. Stop. Just stop, she screamed, her voice raw. I let out a slow breath, my rage settling. I looked at her one last time, really looked at her. And suddenly, I felt nothing. No love. No hate. Just emptiness. I sighed, shaking my head. I hope it was worth it, Claire. Then, I turned and walked away. This time, she didn't try to stop me. I walked down the driveway, not looking back. Claire didn't call my name this time. Jason didn't run after me. They both knew, this was it. The crisp night air hit my face as I reached my car. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And for a moment, I just sat there. My whole world had just imploded. My marriage. My home. The life I thought I had. Gone. I took a deep breath, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. My chest felt tight, my stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the betrayal. The arrogance. The fact that Claire had played me like a fool, laughing behind my back, so sure she'd never get caught. Well, she got caught. And now, I was done. I started the car and pulled out of the driveway, my headlights cutting through the dark street. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. The aftermath. I checked into a cheap motel on the other side of town. No frills. No distractions. Just a place to be alone. I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What now? I had spent years building a life with Claire. I had trusted her. Loved her. And she had turned it into some twisted game. I thought about my next move. Divorce. Obviously. But I wanted to make sure she felt every consequence of what she did. She had humiliated me. Now. It was her turn. The morning after. When I woke up, my phone was flooded with messages. From Claire. From Jason. From friends. Family. Even coworkers. The live stream had spread fast. Apparently, someone had recorded it before I took it down. Now. It was everywhere. Claire had no way to spin this. I smirked bitterly, scrolling through her texts. Claire, please, we need to talk. Claire, you don't understand, it wasn't supposed to be like this. Claire, people at work are finding out. Everyone is talking about it. Please call me. Claire, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. Just please answer me. I ignored her. Then, Jason's messages. Jason, take that video down. Now. Jason, you have no idea what you've done. Jason, I'm serious, man. We need to fix this before it ruins everything. I chuckled. Fix this? No, Jason. You ruined everything. I tossed my phone onto the bed and stretched. Claire and Jason were scrambling now, but I wasn't in a rush. I had all the time in the world. Because unlike them, I wasn't the one who had something to lose. I let the phone keep buzzing. Let Claire panic. Let Jason fume. They were feeling it now. The weight of their choices. The consequences of their game. I took my time, showering, grabbing breakfast from a diner down the road, letting them stew in their mess. By the time I finally checked my phone again, things had escalated. Claire had called 17 times. Jason? 8. But it wasn't just them anymore. My best friend, Dan, had left a message. Dan, bro, you need to call me. This is insane. A coworker, Mike, who had met Claire a few times, texted. Mike, dude, WTF. I just saw the video. Are you okay? Even my sister, who never got involved in drama, had called. The story had spread. And Claire? She was unraveling. The last message from her was the most desperate yet. Claire, people at work are looking at me differently. My boss called me in for a discussion. I could lose everything. Please, can we just talk? I laughed out loud. Claire, always so confident. Always so sure she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. Now. She was realizing what it felt like to lose. I typed out a reply, taking my time. Me, oh, so now it's not a game anymore. Delivered. Read. 3 little dots popped up, she was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. Claire, it was never really a game. I didn't mean it like that. Claire, I was just talking crap. I never thought you'd hear it. I never thought. She stopped. I smirked. Me, yeah. That much is clear. I didn't send anything else. I let her sit in it. Jason loses it. Not even 5 minutes later, Jason's name popped up on my screen. I let it ring. Then he texted. Jason, pick up. Now. Jason, I'm serious. Jason, we need to talk like men before this gets worse. Like men? I shook my head, tossing my phone aside. Jason had already made his choice. He had no right to demand anything from me now. I ignored him. Then, an unknown number popped up. Something told me to answer. Hello? I said, keeping my voice flat. A deep sigh came through the receiver. Look, man. I know we don't know each other, but we need to talk. Who is this? My name's Kevin. I'm Jason's brother. I blinked. That was unexpected. Okay. I said slowly. And what do you want? Kevin hesitated, then lowered his voice. You don't know the half of it, he said. Jason's in deep sh*T. And if I were you, I'd stay the hell away from him. My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? I asked. But Kevin only sighed again. Just watch your back, man, he muttered. Jason doesn't like losing. Then, before I could ask another question, he hung up. The threat. I stared at my phone for a long time. What the hell was that? Jason didn't like losing. Was that some kind of threat? I didn't know, and honestly, I didn't care. Jason could try whatever he wanted. Nothing could undo what had already been done. I had exposed them. Claire's world was falling apart. And now Jason. He was losing control, too. I smirked, leaned back in my chair, and stretched. Let him come. I was just getting started. I sat in that motel room, staring at the ceiling, replaying Kevin's warning over and over in my mind. Jason doesn't like losing. Was it a threat? A warning? Did Jason think he could scare me into fixing this for him? Too late. I had already won. Claire was suffering. Jason was losing it. And me? For the first time in a long time. I felt free. But freedom comes with a cost. And I had a feeling the price hadn't been paid in full just yet. Claire's desperate move. The next morning, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't a text. It was a bank notification. $4,000 withdrawn from our joint account. I blinked. My jaw clenched. I checked my banking app. Another $2,500 gone. My stomach dropped. She was draining our money. I called the bank immediately. This is a fraudulent withdrawal, I said firmly. The representative paused. Sir, this was made by someone with access to the account. I know. I gritted my teeth. And I need to block her access now. Unfortunately, as long as the account is joint, both parties have the right to withdraw funds. I nearly crushed my phone in my hand. That snake. Claire knew she couldn't fix her reputation, so now she was trying to secure her escape. I had been so focused on humiliating her that I hadn't thought about the financial side. And now? She was bleeding me dry before I could fight back. I wasn't about to let that happen. Locking it down. I drove straight to the bank, walked inside, and demanded to close the account. The teller gave me a sympathetic look. She knew. The whole damn town knew. I'd like to transfer all remaining funds into a new account under my name, I said. Of course, sir. But, your wife has already withdrawn most of the balance. I clenched my jaw. How much is left? She checked her screen. About $600. $600. From an account that had over $15,000 yesterday. I forced a smile. I'll take it. Within minutes, I had a new account. My money was locked down. Claire wouldn't get another cent. But I wasn't done. I needed leverage. I needed to hit back. And I knew exactly where to start. Jason's other secret. I parked outside my friend Dan's place, knocking on the door. He answered immediately, pulling me inside. Dude, he said, shaking his head. This whole thing is crazy. Everyone's talking about it. I don't care about that, I said, sitting down. I need to know everything you know about Jason. Dan's expression darkened. After a long silence, he exhaled. All right, but you didn't hear this from me. And then? He told me everything. Jason wasn't just some guy from Claire's past. He was worse. The kind of guy who had a habit of screwing over people, not just wives. The kind of guy who owed money to some dangerous people. And the best part? He was in deep sh*t with his job, too. He worked for a small financial firm, but apparently there had been some discrepancies in his accounts. Rumors of embezzlement. Nothing proven, yet. But if the firm caught wind of his name trending on social media for an affair, they'd start digging. And if they started digging, Jason's entire life would go up in flames. I sat back, smirking. I had all the ammo I needed. It was time to burn him to the ground. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of what Dan had just told me settle in. Jason wasn't just a cheating scumbag, he was dirty. And if there was one thing I knew about corporate finance, when people start sniffing around missing money, careers don't just end, they explode. I had spent the last few days watching my life collapse. Now, it was Jason's turn. I pulled out my phone and started typing. Hey Jason, I think we need to talk. He replied within seconds. Jason, you finally ready to be a man about this? I laughed out loud. Oh, I'm being a man about it. Meet me at the diner on 4th in 30 minutes. Unless you're scared. I knew he wouldn't ignore that. Jason was the kind of guy who always had to win. And right now? He thought he still had a chance. Checkmate. The bell over the diner door jingled as I stepped inside. Jason was already there, arms crossed, his usual cocky smirk in place. Look who finally decided to grow a pair, he sneered. I slid into the seat across from him, keeping my expression calm. We'll see about that. He scoffed. So, what's this about? You finally realize you overreacted? I smirked. Let him think he was in control. No, I said smoothly. It's about your job. That wiped the smirk off his face. What? He asked, his voice suddenly sharp. I leaned forward. You see, I was talking to some people, I said. And your name came up. Something about, missing money. Jason's jaw tightened. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to an article headline Dan had sent me. Local financial firm investigating internal fraud allegations. I placed the phone on the table between us. Jason stared at it. Then, he looked at me. You wouldn't, he muttered. I shrugged. Wouldn't I? His hands curled into fists. If you say anything, I swear to God. I cut him off. You're not in a position to make threats, Jason, I said coolly. See, I already made sure some very curious people saw that video. And now? They're very interested in you. Jason's face drained of color. You son of a... I smiled. I'm just playing the game, Jason. His breathing was heavy, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. You want to come after me? I continued. Go ahead. But if you do, I promise your boss, your clients, and maybe even the feds are going to start digging. And something tells me they're going to find a lot more than a guy who sleeps with married women. He said nothing. For the first time, Jason looked small. Weak. Beaten. I stood up. I'd start looking for a new job if I were you, I said. Oh, and maybe a new place to live. Because Claire. She's not exactly loyal. Jason's nostrils flared. You think you won? He spat. I chuckled. I don't think, Jason. I turned to leave, tossing one last dagger over my shoulder. I know. Claire's final plea. That night, I packed my bags. I was done with this town. The divorce papers were already being prepared, my name was off our accounts, and as for Claire, she was going to be left with nothing. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone rang. Claire. I almost ignored it. Almost. But some twisted part of me wanted to hear what she had to say now that everything had crumbled around her. I answered. She was crying. Sweetheart, she stammered. Please, just let's talk. I didn't say anything. I know I messed up, she sobbed. I was stupid. I was selfish. But you were my best friend. You can't just walk away. I let out a slow breath. Claire, I said quietly. She hiccuped through her tears. Yes. I hung up. No more words. No more chances. No more games. I grabbed my bags, walked out the door, and never looked back. Game over. I drove through the city one last time, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. The place that had once felt like home now felt like a graveyard of memories. Every street, every restaurant, every familiar landmark, it all reminded me of her. Of us. Of the lie I had been living. But not anymore. Now. I was finally free. The divorce papers. A week later, the papers were ready. I didn't deliver them in person. Claire didn't deserve that. Instead, I had my lawyer send them straight to her doorstep. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Claire. I ignored it. Then another call. And another. Finally, she texted. Claire, I can't believe you're actually doing this. Claire, please, don't do this to us. Claire, I know I messed up, but we can fix it. We can still have everything. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed 2 words. We had it. I blocked her number. Jason's fate. A few weeks later, I got a text from Dan. Dan, dude, you're gonna want to see this. Attached was a screenshot of a news article. Jason's firm had fired him. An internal audit had found inconsistencies in his accounts. Translation. They caught him. I smirked, shaking my head. It wasn't my problem anymore. Jason had played a dirty game, and he lost. Claire's new reality. I never reached out to Claire again. But I heard things. She lost friends. She lost her reputation. She lost me. She tried to fight the divorce at first, but she had nothing to stand on. In the end, she walked away with nothing but regret. Starting over. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, a city skyline stretching before me. A new place. A new life. No more lies. No more betrayals. No more Claire. For the first time in a long time, I took a deep breath and smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. I was moving forward. And the best part? I had won.